What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 2 of Voice Talks. Today, we're going to be talking about UFC 276, NBA free agency, and of course, the top hip hop album so far of 2022. Kendrick Lamar released Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and a lot of heavy topics on that album. A lot of talking about father time, talking about relationships between your motherly roles and your fatherly roles in your family, talking about generational curses, talking about things that really opened my eyes and kind of like were so relatable, at least to me. And I love all of Kendrick Lamar's work, especially early on with Good Kid, Mad City. Of course, later he changed things up with Damn, and of course, you have to Pimp a Butterfly. So many great albums, right? Section 80. I can go on and on about this. But this album I found to be the most relatable so far, where he's talking about generational curses and the relationships, with your father and your mother and your family, and just trying to really grow as a person, right? And kind of seeing the struggles that your family has gone through and trying to, I guess, avoid the same stumbles, and learn and grow from other people's mistakes, and which is an awesome message. And so that's one of the reasons why I love Kendrick Lamar is just there's always like this great message behind all of his music. Of course, the message is great too, but we want to hear some bangers as well, right? And this album has both of those things, those songs like Father Time that have a great message, and then of course some bangers like N95, which hello, any I think we're in 2022 now, 2 years into this pandemic, COVID pandemic, we all know what an N95 mask is. And so, yeah, he throws little things out, he talks about Kyrie and his situation, in that song specifically. He talks about, the black community and some of the things that they're struggling with, especially nowadays as the music and entertainment world evolves. How is it that people rip off of black and brown communities and things that we've seen, and of course this guy Kendrick Lamar, he's spearheading that movement and talking about things that are uncomfortable. Our next top album, which was Few Good Things by Saba, released earlier this year, and I love Saba. One of the greatest Chicago rappers out right now. Chicago, I mean, including Kanye West, it has always brought out awesome artists just in general. But this time Saba drops a great hip hop album this year with A Few Good Things. And if you don't want to listen to the entire album, just Google A Few Good Things or YouTube A Few Good Things. That song alone is great. The sample is great. And just like Kendrick's album, he's going to hit you with some lines that kind of like, whoa, go over your head, and then you keep listening to it and you're like, I get it now. As it seems like it's raining outside, so there was some thunder. So shout out to the Orlando weather right now. It's starting to pick up. Go ahead and finish this topic with Denzel Curry's album, Melt My Eyes, Your Future, See Your Future. And the videos just alone, you just should go on YouTube. I guarantee you will be blown away by the videos this guy has been dropping this year. Very visually inspiring. Of course, he does always use callbacks to like different animes and I guess animes would be the best word. He loves Japanese animes. Denzel Curry always just experimenting with anime and that world, right? For Melt My Eyes, See Your Future. There's just so much texture, so many layers to the album with the lines and just the music. It's an experience, and that's what I really look for, especially with hip hop. I look for an experience with the beats, with some of the words that could be like a painting, right? You're watching something being painted on a canvas, and I feel like Denzel Curry's music is just always like that, always painting, always adding to the canvas. But let's go ahead and go to some headlines. We will stick to NBA free agency. This past Friday, free agency opened up. The phone lines opened up for NBA teams to negotiate with free agents. So Zion Williamson signing almost a $300 million rookie max deal with New Orleans, I think it's horrible, man. Like, think about New Orleans fans right now. You're struggling to get free agents, and now your organization just signed this kid who's barely played for nearly $300 million just based on potential of what he could be. and he hasn't been healthy, and he's been, well, maybe somebody might be saying that I'm body shaming, but this dude, he's nearly 350 pounds, should not be running him down the court at 350 pounds. Those knees are messed up, guys. He's got to get healthy. He's got to really drop some weight this summer. I am a Zion Williamson fan. He's a generational talent when he's healthy, but $300 million, guys, that's a little too much. Kevin Durant, hours before the free agent market opened up in 2022, declared that he wanted to be traded to either the Heat, the Miami Heat, or the Phoenix Suns. And whether you're a LeBron fan, LeBron hater, Kevin Durant fan, Kevin Durant hater because he went to the Warriors and whatever, right? However you feel about the guy is a top 3 talent when healthy, top 3 player in the world when healthy. And he was playing alongside James Harden, playing alongside Kyrie Irving. But the Nets organization, as I've said it on my Instagram story, is a poverty franchise, ladies and gentlemen. I am coming from the culture, right? Miami Heat, organization that has not just won titles, but they have such a great professional attitude. Everybody that I've known that's worked with the Miami Heat always talks about the Heat culture, and the Nets have no culture. The Nets are lost. The Nets are looking to have a big haul for either Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving did opt into his deal, which was nearly $40 million. And, the rumor is that the Lakers are the best team right now to take on that big contract from Kyrie Irving and get rid of one of their big contracts in Russell Westbrook. So I would like to see that move. I would like to see Russell Westbrook get a fresh start. I feel like his game really needs to change. And if he leaves a LeBron-led team, maybe he might have more freedom. Maybe we see a Oklahoma City Thunder / Houston healthy Houston Russell Westbrook. Maybe we see him come back, right, to a fresh team, and we see let's see what happens, right? But I think the Nets are looking for a big haul for especially Kevin Durant. So we'll see. Whatever team gets Kevin Durant is going to have to gut their team, probably cut their entire salary cap in half. You're taking a big 4-year contract, and you're probably going to have to give up a lot of picks. So I see a team, I feel like from the two between Phoenix and Miami, Phoenix definitely has Miles Bridges and other great players that could provide some help for the Nets, and of course the draft capital. That I don't think the Heat have that kind of capital. They just drafted a kid. Unless they get rid of him, which I don't see that happening. They just signed on Tyler Hero. PJ Tucker's leaving. They just signed Deadman back as well. I just don't see the Heat being able to take on a big contract from Kevin Durant. Unless they're gutting their roster and they're getting rid of Jimmy Butler, they're getting rid of Kyle Lowry and Tyler Hero, like I just mentioned. So we'll see what happens. Friday afternoon, let me take a look at the date real quick. We're filming this on 7/3/2022, and the actual deadline for the free agent market in the NBA is the 8th. So we still got 6-7 days to really for the NBA to hash things out. I have to mention one thing before we go ahead and move on to UFC 276. Stephen A. Smith has been hugely critical on Kyrie Irving, and rightfully so. He has his opinion, and he can share his opinion. But one tweet that he had really pissed me off this past week, and he had said that Kyrie Irving was ruining the Nets. Listen. This league is, yes, all about the players. Even more than the NFL, more than the MLB, more than any other organization in American sports right now. The NBA players run the league. That's just how it is, right? But to say that Kyrie Irving alone is to blame for the Nets' downfall, I think is ridiculous. Knowing how Kyrie Irving is, his personality, his talent, probably one of the top guards in the NBA all time. Knowing him already, just based off an ESPN article or just some of the headlines, the things that he's been involved in, they still decided to take him on. They decided to sign him on for a big contract, which he opted in. Now, whatever happens with Kyrie Irving, a team will have to guarantee him $40 million over the next couple years. So the Nets didn't, I'm sorry. Kyrie Irving didn't ruin the Nets. The Nets ruined themselves because they took on Kevin Durant, a guy who is a snake, and joined the Warriors for, a soda and a popcorn real quick, got a championship, and he left town. He skipped town. This guy has no loyalty. And then you take on Kyrie Irving for a big contract, and you blow up half your roster. You take on Ben Simmons. I'm sorry, but if you're out there signing Ben Simmons, who is running around for 40 minutes, maybe getting a rebound or two, maybe getting a block or two, but scoring no points, is sitting out all these games due to a back injury, I mean, you ruined yourself. The Nets ruined themselves. I'm sorry, Stephen A. Smith, but you are wrong on this one. And I have to defend my boy, Kyrie Irving. He's an NBA player just like any other player, and you're going to tell me that him alone ruined the team? Not on my watch. That's the BS meter's going like this right now when I hear that from Stephen A. Smith. So let's go ahead and wrap things up and head to the main event of the evening, which is UFC 276. Ladies and gentlemen, I had my first UFC party at the house yesterday. Got some drinks. We ordered some McDonald's. We sat back and watched violence for, 4 or 5 hours. Pedro Munoz was facing Sean O'Malley, who's a huge hype train, even though he's not undefeated anymore at 15-1. So we're like hyping things up. We're like, guys, this is MMA, mixed martial arts. This is going to be so dope. The fight goes to 2 rounds and it ends in a final no contest because Sean O'Malley decides to hit him with a nut shot. Then after that hits him with 2 eye pokes, which is obviously illegal. And then at that point, Pedro Munoz, which you could argue he was playing it off. For whatever reason, he could not open his eye. His eye was shut. And I'll let all the internet keyboard warriors, hash out whether he was BSing or if it was a real injury. But at the end of the day, you have Munoz, who's a tough cookie, who's never been finished in the UFC, has a no contest against Sean O'Malley, who initially thought that he got a W. But again, it was ruled no contest, and we'll see what happens. Does the UFC, have these guys fight again? Does Sean O'Malley face Chito Vera, who's very close to a title shot? We'll see what happens. But let's go ahead to another big fight, which was Brian Barberena versus Robbie Lawler, who's a legend. I mean, you had Donald Cerrone, Jim Miller, you had Robbie Lawler. I mean, for every longtime UFC fan, I mean, this card is just the cherry on top of 2022. This was, on paper, it was one of the best cards. And Robbie Lawler gave Brian Barberena the work in the first round, really, connecting shots, hitting him with nice combos. Robbie Lawler is a savage, but unfortunately, Brian Barberena was just buying his time, putting his punches together, and eventually with 4:47 into the second round, he wins by a TKO. And we see Robbie Lawler go down hard, and it's always hard to see your favorite veterans go down hard that way, but great win by Brian Barberena, who might be looking for, a title shot in his division very, very soon with 18 wins and 8 losses. So we go to what could have been a crazy back and forth fight between Alex Pereira, who is also Brazilian, 6-1, fairly new to the UFC, against a veteran in Sean Strickland, who, if Sean Strickland isn't in the UFC in 2022, and maybe we're in 1442 or so, or 1562, back in the medieval times, this guy Sean Strickland is a knight, or maybe he's a Spartan, or he's a gladiator. I mean, this guy is a savage at 25 wins and 4 losses. He's got knockout power. I mean, I was expecting some back and forth action in this one. And at that point, the stream, because I didn't pay for the pay-per-view. Don't tell Dana White. The stream gets stuck, and I refresh the page. The fight is over, and 2 minutes and 30 seconds into the first round, Alex Pereira just lands a nasty uppercut and drops Sean Strickland. I've never seen him get dropped like that before, where he's out on his feet and he just hits the canvas. Alex Pereira is the man who notably beat Israel Adesanya, the current middleweight champion in kickboxing, the only man to ever beat Israel Adesanya on the canvas before. And at 6-1, he might be staring at a title shot, beating Sean Strickland. And of course, spoiler alert, Israel Adesanya repeated as champ this past weekend. But you have this guy, Alex Pereira, who's only fought 7 fights in the UFC. He might be looking at a title shot against Izzy because he's the guy. He's the only guy to ever drop Izzy the way that he did. And of course, not in the UFC, in kickboxing. But this guy has knockout power, dropping Sean Strickland the way he did. So let's go ahead and wrap things up here. We got our co-main event. Alexander Volkanovski, the Australian champ, going against Max Holloway with his Hawaii power. All of Hawaii, all of the Pacific coast was riding on his shoulders. And Max Holloway had actually lost the first 2 meetings between these two gentlemen. But Alexander Volkanovski, I mean, he just gets better every single fight. And he's a stud. He's 25-1 for a reason. This guy was 180, 200, around that. And now he's cutting to the weight that he fights in now at featherweight. And he's beating guys with his power. And we've seen him escape. We saw him against the Korean Zombie, connecting his punches. We've seen him escape just crazy submission attempts. We saw Brian Ortega almost take him out. and it's just incredible. It's like this guy is just the big bad boss in a video game. And there's nothing you can do about it. If you don't beat him on the feet, you're not going to take him down. We saw Max Holloway try to reach in for some takedowns. Never got close. Max Holloway looks slow, man, and I hate to say it, but this was Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson. This was, up-and-coming guy versus a veteran who can't seem to find the rhythm. And Max Holloway, his last win, we all remember him looking at the judges in the middle of the fight, throwing punches, not even looking at his opponent. And he declared himself the best boxer in the UFC, in MMA. And that was not prevalent in this fight. Alexander Volkanovski, we might not see him lose for the next, 5-6 fights unless somebody in that division is really looking to take him on. At 25-1, this guy is just as good as Izzy right now in his division. And he had said that after winning by unanimous decision, that he's looking to move up to lightweight. Look out Conor, look out Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler. I mean, there's so many names in the lightweight division, except, of course, Charles Oliveira, the current champion. But all those guys are lined up just for him. We're looking at Gilbert Burns and George Masvidal, which was some breaking news we got earlier today from the UFC. This guy, Alexander Volkanovski, his nickname is Alexander the Great for a reason. He's got power behind his punches. And until we really see him, face somebody on the opposite end of the octagon with the same power, he might remain champion for, like I said, the next 5-6 title fights. We will see. So let's go ahead and get to the main event. I won't spend too much time on it. Unfortunately, at that point, my girlfriend had walked in and I'm like, babe, check this out. The main card, main fight. And, she was tired. She went to bed. And you know what? I should have gone to bed too because it really was a snore fest. You have this guy, super technical, Israel Adesanya, who's, I believe, 6'4", facing a 5, I thought he was 6 feet, but Jared Cannonier is actually 5'11". And my prediction was Cannonier actually wins this one by uppercut, because I'm like, the shorter guy, maybe keeping the right distance can land that shot, right? But boy, was I wrong. This guy, Israel Adesanya, 23-1, just like Alexander Volkanovski, just another stud, scores 49-46, 49-46, and 50-45 by unanimous decision. The judges gave the decision, and it went all the way, all 5 rounds, but it was a snore fest, ladies and gentlemen. And if we look at the total strikes, I mean, it really wasn't anywhere that different. Israel landed 163 shots, and Cannonier landed 141. So there wasn't a decisive moment where you're looking at Israel or Jared and you're like, the champ might go down. The champ is hurt. There was never any of that. And even though Jared tried to put him against the cage, the taller guy against the cage, he had 4 minutes and 14 seconds of not ground control, but of control time just in the clinch. And Israel Adesanya is just too smart, too good and too smart, and he wins by unanimous decision. And he called out Alex Pereira, who, like I said, only had 7 fights so far in his career in the UFC, but he might be looking at a title fight very, very soon. I'm sure Dana White is gonna go crazy with the promotion and everything. I'm excited. If you're telling me that the champ who's been so dominant is gonna fight the only guy to ever beat him in that division, let's remember, even though Israel is 23-1, that one loss was a light heavyweight bout against Blachowicz, right? The Polish guy, and he lost that fight. That's the only time he's ever lost, and it wasn't even in that same division. So Alex Pereira, I'm pulling for you. Izzy is nasty. Izzy is literally the Terminator. He is a robot. Just keeping that jab, keeping the distance, mixing things up. You can't take him down. He's 6'4", way too lanky, way too smart, way too fast. And he comes away with a big decision win against Jared Cannonier. Big shout out to Plug Talk Sports. Check us out every Monday through Lemon City Live. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Twitter. And, of course, Instagram and YouTube every Monday for our sports podcast. You guys have a good night. I will have a better night.